Ridgewood was no stranger to whispers of crime. A quiet town tucked away from the chaos of the cities, its people believed themselves insulated from true danger. That belief was shattered one rainy November night when the local library caught fire. It wasn't the fire that shocked the town, though it was what was found in the ashes. Among the charred remains of books and furniture lay a body, unrecognizable but clutching a distinct silver locket. Sheriff Reed stood over the scene, rain dripping off his hat as the fire chief approached. "This wasn't an accident," the chief said grimly. "And that body, it wasn't here when the fire started." The town awoke to the terrifying news, and rumors spread faster than the flames ever had. Forensics revealed the body belonged to Stephanie Miller, a beloved teacher who had been missing for 3 days. Her silver locket, a gift from her late husband, was instantly recognized by her friends. Stephanie's death struck a nerve in the community. She was the last person anyone would expect to be involved in anything dangerous. Yet the autopsy revealed something chilling. She was already dead before the fire. Sheriff Reed began questioning her co-workers and neighbors. One name kept coming up: Daniel Cross, the school's new janitor. Quiet and reserved, Daniel had only moved to Ridgewood 6 months ago. He claimed he'd barely known Stephanie, but his nervous demeanor set off alarms. Digging into Daniel's background, the sheriff discovered inconsistencies in his past. His records from his previous town were sparse, almost clean, and his references couldn't be reached. Meanwhile, Stephanie's sister, Rebecca, approached Reed with something strange. "I found this in her room," she said, handing him a crumpled piece of paper. On it were the words, "Meet me at the library. Midnight. Don't tell anyone." Rebecca insisted Stephanie had no reason to be at the library so late. The message was unsigned, but a handwriting expert confirmed it wasn't Stephanie's. Someone else had lured her there. Reed's focus shifted back to Daniel. The janitor's key ring included access to the library. When questioned again, Daniel claimed he was home all night but couldn't provide an alibi. Just when the case seemed to be narrowing in on Daniel, a new piece of evidence threw everything into chaos. A sealed envelope arrived at the sheriff's office, addressed to Reed in perfect cursive. Inside was a typed letter. "You're looking in the wrong place." Stephanie knew too much, and she paid the price. "Keep digging, and you might join her." The letter was unsigned, but a fingerprint analysis revealed it had been handled by none other than Stephanie herself. Reed's instincts told him this was bigger than Ridgewood's quiet facade. Someone was playing a game, and Stephanie's death was just the beginning. Sheriff Reed tightened security at the station and revisited the list of people who had frequent contact with Stephanie. Among them was Emma Clark, a shy, soft-spoken librarian who worked the night shift. She had been on duty the evening the fire broke out. When Reed brought her in for questioning, Emma hesitated but finally confessed, "I saw Stephanie that night. She came in around 11:30, looking worried. She was meeting someone, but I didn't see who it was." Emma admitted she left early, not wanting to get involved in whatever was happening. "But one detail stuck out. Before I left, I saw someone else in the parking lot. They were sitting in a black car, watching the library." Reed followed up on Emma's lead, searching for any black car registered to Ridgewood residents. The list was long, but one name caught his attention: Vincent Haynes, a former police officer turned private investigator who had been quietly working in town for the past year. Vincent's background raised eyebrows. A decorated officer, he had resigned from the force under mysterious circumstances. When Reed questioned him, Vincent admitted he'd been hired to watch Stephanie. "She reached out to me 2 weeks ago," Vincent said, lighting a cigarette with shaking hands. "She said someone was threatening her, but she wouldn't give me details. She only wanted me to keep an eye on her." Vincent claimed he had been parked near the library the night of the fire, waiting for Stephanie to show up. He swore he never saw her go inside, let alone anyone else. "You expect me to believe you were there and missed someone starting a fire?" Reed pressed. Vincent's silence was damning. As Reed dug deeper into Stephanie's life, he uncovered an unsettling pattern. Stephanie had been withdrawing large sums of money from her account, and her phone records revealed frequent calls to a burner phone. Rebecca, her sister, admitted she had no idea about the money. "Steph never mentioned anything about being in trouble," she said, her voice trembling. "But she did seem distracted lately, like she was scared of something." The burner phone led nowhere, no identifiable owner, no traceable address. But the withdrawals painted a picture. Stephanie was being blackmailed. Just as Reed began piecing things together, a second body was discovered. This time it was Daniel Cross, the janitor. He was found in the woods behind the school, his hands bound and his throat slit. Next to Daniel's body was a note, identical in style to the one Reed had received. "Stay out of this, you've been warned." The message was clear. Whoever was behind Stephanie's death wasn't finished. The town was in uproar, 2 murders in a week, both tied to Stephanie. Reed began to suspect the blackmail wasn't just about her. It was a web, and Daniel had been another unfortunate soul caught in it. The pressure mounted as the townspeople demanded answers. Sheriff Reed's investigation uncovered another curious detail. Stephanie's planner, found among her belongings, had peculiar marks next to certain dates, small circles filled in with red ink. Reed consulted Rebecca, but she had no idea what the markings meant. She was meticulous, but this. "It's not her usual style," Rebecca said, flipping through the planner with a furrowed brow. A forensic analysis revealed faint imprints on some pages, as if Stephanie had written something and torn it out. Using a pencil, Reed shaded over the impressions to reveal a series of numbers, 103 for 12. Reed suspected it was a code but couldn't crack it. That's when Paul Blake, a local math teacher, suggested it might correspond to letters. Translating the numbers yielded JDCL. Reed searched for connections to JDCL and discovered a file in the county archives labeled JDC Logistics, a company that had shut down years ago after being implicated in embezzlement and fraud. The CEO of JDC Logistics was none other than Charles Lane, Stephanie's late husband. The revelation sent shockwaves through the investigation. Rebecca was stunned. "She never talked about JDC," she said. Charles kept her out of his business. But a deeper dive into JDC's records revealed Stephanie had been listed as a silent partner. Even after Charles's death, her name remained tied to the company. Reed pieced together a chilling theory. Stephanie's blackmailer knew about her connection to JDC Logistics. The money she had been withdrawing was likely hush money to keep the truth buried, but there was more. Reed found that Vincent Haynes, the private investigator, had been hired to dig into JDC's collapse before Stephanie reached out to him. When confronted, Vincent admitted, "I was looking into the old employees." Someone didn't want their secrets getting out. Vincent handed over his files, revealing a list of people tied to JDC who had disappeared over the years. At the top of the list was Daniel Cross, the janitor. He wasn't just a quiet drifter, he was a former accountant for JDC. The pieces began to align. Daniel had likely discovered financial irregularities at JDC and had gone into hiding after its collapse. When Stephanie's name resurfaced in connection with the company, someone began tying up loose ends. Reed decided to use the files to lure the killer out. He leaked word that the sheriff's office had found damning evidence against JDC's remaining partners and announced a press conference. The plan worked. That night, an intruder broke into the station. Security cameras captured a shadowy figure rifling through the evidence locker before fleeing. The figure wore gloves and a mask, but a slip-up revealed something crucial, a tattoo on the wrist, a distinctive design matching one seen in the old JDC employee records. The tattoo was the break Reed needed. Cross-referencing the design with employee records, he identified the intruder as Nathan Greaves, a former JDC Logistics enforcer. Nathan had worked as the company's cleanup man, handling anyone who got too close to exposing the firm's crimes. Reed issued an APB on Nathan but kept digging. His instincts told him there was still someone higher up pulling the strings. A deeper dive into JDC's financial records revealed that Charles Lane's silent partner wasn't Stephanie, it was a shell corporation tied to a local businessman, Warren Phillips, one of Ridgewood's wealthiest citizens. Phillips had been quietly buying influence in town for years, and Stephanie's blackmail payments had been funneled directly to him. Reed realized that Phillips had used Nathan to silence both Stephanie and Daniel, who could have exposed his involvement in JDC's collapse. Reed orchestrated a sting to bring Phillips and Nathan down. Using Vincent Haynes as bait, they set up a meeting at a remote diner, claiming Vincent had the original JDC records and was willing to sell them for the right price. Phillips arrived, calm and collected, accompanied by Nathan, who lurked in the shadows with a concealed weapon. The tension was palpable as Vincent slid a fake file across the table. "I don't think you understand who you're dealing with," Phillips said, his voice dripping with menace. At that moment, the sheriff's team stormed the diner. Nathan pulled his gun, but Vincent tackled him to the ground as deputies swarmed in. Phillips tried to flee but was intercepted in the parking lot. With Phillips and Nathan in custody, it seemed the case was finally closed. But as Reed reviewed the files, he noticed something chilling. Phillips's payments didn't stop with Stephanie. They included regular deposits to an unknown account marked with the initials AL. Rebecca was called in to review the records, and her face went pale. "That's Allison Lane, Charles's sister. She's alive." Reed was stunned. Allison had been presumed dead for years after a boating accident. But now it was clear she had faked her death and was the true mastermind behind the blackmail scheme. She had used Phillips and Nathan as pawns to tie up loose ends while keeping herself hidden. A nationwide manhunt began for Allison Lane. Ridgewood began to heal, but Reed couldn't shake the feeling that she was still watching, waiting for her next move.